Hey there! Today, let's keep on working on the governmental blog that I've started not so long time ago. And today we are working on the park that's going to be attached right next to the backyard of the city hall that's already created. And initially you may remember this layout that I've already showed to you during part 2 of the city hall, and to be honest, I did not like it. It was more of a test of an idea and it just didn't really work out. So let's just bulldoze it and create a brand new blank lot to work with. And in fact, let's even make two. So one of them is going to be the park, and right next to it we're going to have a skating rink. Yeah, that's what I have in mind for now. And I want to apologize for my sick voice today, because I have not fully recovered from the flu, a really bad one that I caught like a week ago. And in fact, I had to postpone publishing a different video that I was working on, because I kind of need my healthy voice for that. But it's coming soon, and I wanted to work on something else that is not that voice demanding as that mission number 1. Well, then as for the build, you can already see that I started working on the layout. I've just put down some fences, two sections of the pathways and some flower beds, or what would you call those? Like sectioned off areas with the greenery. And then I had to mirror the art that we have with these connecting columns. And of course, to make them totally match, I had to use the quarter tile placement. I did not get the exact position right away, so it was a bit of a trial and error process here, but then I wanted to add another sections here at the front so that the whole layout is more or less symmetrical and structured, because after all this is like an official part of the city. Though I do imagine that in the past this was like a personal garden for some rich family here. Then I wanted to find the exact center of the lot to place another double archway there. For that we're gonna need another 4 tiles like that, and this is gonna serve as our entrance to the skating park that's gonna be located right next to it. And the thing with these connecting columns is that sometimes you get them off and they still connect, even though like in a weird way, so gotta be careful about that. So then I had to place the relative center of the lot, like not the entire, I believe it's 4x2, but the section that is marked by the walls. From there I just put the rest of the tiles, and because the elevation is not even across the field, I had to place them in some weird sections, because I was not using the constraint floor elevation cheat at this point yet. Because at this point this could change like a dozen of times, so I did not want to ruin the initial elevation that we got from just placing the lot. Then I wanted to define the central square here a bit more, and initially I did not plan to use these red tiles because, well, I thought I was going for the yellow ones. And I put those just not to lose the exact center. But as I started putting more and more of them, I was like, huh, that actually looks pretty nice. So why don't we go with that? And that also gave me an idea of what's going to be our accent color for this build. If it was the blue one for the city hall, and we are going to have some specks of blue here and there, at least for the benches too. But red is going to be another very prominent feature, especially with the way that it rhymes with the red brick that we're gonna have all over the place here. And I do think that we need something very striking at the exact center. For that I also wanted to add a couple of sculptures here and there, and of course I first went for these ladies, but then I decided to move them a little bit to the side, so not to obstruct the entire view. And then of course some fountains. Well, where would we go without them? And this time we're placing them in the corners, and as you can see the center is kind of blank, but that's gonna be changed later on, because I found a pretty interesting solution for this. Then I'm just adding another double archway on the other side, so that we have another entrance to the other lot that will be located to the left. And it's funny how my decision to go with the quarter tile placement with the initial city hall kind of forced me to use the same here in the park. So then we are moving on to one of the most striking features of this entire build, which is the pond in the middle with an arching bridge across it. And to be honest, I think I have used this technique only maybe once or twice when I was just figuring out how the constraint floor elevation cheat works, and I have never incorporated this bridge in a build before. The technique is pretty simple. All you need to do is enter the cheat and then gradually raise the terrain under the bridge that you've placed first. In this particular case, I used 2 tiles for the arch, and then the 4x3 tiles in the middle ended up being straight. So I was pretty satisfied with the bridge curvature and the arch it formed, even though it's not much of an arch. So then I just added the fence so the people didn't fall off into the water, and then I also added these handrails to the stairs. And I think that my choice of rustic metal fence kinda adds to the whole historic vibe that I was going for. So with that done, we can now turn off the cheat, and that should keep the bridge in the current form. So no matter what we do to the terrain, it should not affect the curvature that we've created before. And as for the floor tiles, I first went for the bricks that I used across the entire lot, but then I thought that it would be much more realistic to place just some wooden planks in here. But one thing that absolutely drove me nuts is just how by default the game only adds those flimsy wooden columns to support the entire bridge, no matter how long it is. I think you can add more of those columns if you add the foundation in smaller portions, but then I thought that, maybe we can use these connecting columns to create some sort of a support under the bridge. And this way it's gonna connect all of the elements even more. Though if this wasn't a no CC build, I would definitely consider using the Buggy Boo's niche set. But I think these are gonna work just fine, even though they are a pain in the ass to work with. Not only because of the quarter placement, which messes up their connectivity, but also because of all the elevation madness that we have going on there. So the game was very laggy the moment I placed the column somewhere near where it's supposed to go. And as you can see, the rotation was completely off, so I had to very carefully press the button, or just slowly do that with the mouse. But, well, the end result was really worth it. And so I placed 2 sets of columns of 3 on both sides, but because of the width of 3 that we have for the bridge, they did not really connect that well. So we had this weird gap in the middle, which I decided to simply fill in with a single column. Like, even though it was not connecting properly, I thought it looked pretty nice. And you can't really see it if you don't go into the tab view and you look at that portion there. Then I tried experimenting with these decorative pieces to kind of hide the ugly white seam that we have. But unfortunately, because of the slope, it did not look that well. And at some point, just the elevation got messed up. So I just abandoned the idea and thought that, well, it's gonna look fine even like that. And so instead I just put some reeds here and there, and then I place another shrub to hide this diagonal slope, and then I removed these decorative pieces altogether. But having only the pond is not enough water for me, so I decided to add these 1 tile thin strips of water pool too. Of course, with the default tile they look kind of weird, but changing the walls and the ground to something else kind of makes all the difference. And of course then these water flowers and water lilies change the entire look so that it doesn't look like a water pool anymore, and instead just like a decorative piece of water. Having placed a couple of those flowers in the pond too, I thought that it would be necessary to add the fence here as well. And at first I thought that, well, adding the same as high one would be ideal, but then it was just obstructing too much and kind of hiding this column that I was working that hard to do. And so instead I just went for the short one that I used for the water pools. And by this point the entire lot looks kind of flat, and so I thought it was time to add a couple of trees to add that necessary elevation variety here on the lot. And for the closed off sections with these fences, I used a lot of shrubs, the same blocky ones that I used before, and in the middle I left a special section to place another shrub, the one that comes with the pink flowers. I think it looks really nice when you put them all together. Then I was kind of surprised to find out that all these water lilies and water flowers have variations in terms of recolors. For some reason, I just assumed that we have only the pink ones. Well, the more you know. Then I had to distract a bit from the greenery and all the shrubs, and instead I just created a little cover for all the phone booths here at the front. So I imagine that this is gonna be close to the bus stop that we're gonna have here. And again, to tie all the lots that we're gonna have within this governmental block, I'm gonna color all the trash cans, benches, and phone booths in blue. One thing I definitely didn't like is the way that these water pools were connected with the ground. They seemed kind of separate and just out of the place. And so I had to come up with this brick pattern using the Control F and the triangle placement of the floor tiles. And I think in the end it didn't look half bad. And somewhere at this point I realized that there isn't really much that you can do if you come to this park. Other than just a couple of pretty places, there is really little activity in the lot. And so I decided to add a little coffee shop, even though it's 5x2 tiles, and the majority of that 3x2 is a public restroom. So yeah, this is gonna be just a little stand where you can buy some coffee. And as for the roof color, I even considered these bright red tiles, but then I thought it would look too out of the place, especially with the bigger lot that I'll be adding later on. And so I just went with the one that was used in the city hall. So that's that brown one, especially with the way that it matches the decorative roof pieces that we have with Apartment Life. And then I realized that I was using the wrong floor tiles. Well, not exactly wrong, but it did not match the one that we used at the backyard. And the whole idea was kind of to connect them all together. So I decided we'll have to have some sort of a blend between the two. That's where I added these little brick tiles, or I'm not sure what you can call those. Oh, and another thing that was meant to tie the two lots together are these arches, but sadly they are not visible from a different lot. And so the simple solution was just to place the duplicates on this lot as well. And as for the floor tiles, I think it turned out to be an improvement in terms of the look. Because with just the yellow tiles, it looked kind of repetitive. But this adds the necessary bit of variety, which I really liked. Then to add even more activity, I added a couple of chess tables because, come on, like, what park is there without a couple of grandpas playing some chess? And after that, I went back to the hood view because I needed to place a couple of hood decos that would be visible from the lot and were kind of meant to be the part of the lot itself. So those are the bus stop at the front. Then we have this dumpster at the coffee shop. And I think that to the left, we're gonna have some commercial lots, and so they would really need that. And then, as the central piece, since we don't have any suitable column in terms of the buy mode, I placed this plumb up in the center. Unfortunately, since this is a hood deco, the Sims would be able to just walk through it if they were walking through the lot. And so I had to place these fences to prevent that from happening. And it's also kind of tricky to get the correct placement from the first go. And the tip here is to just try and position the camera as vertically as you can. Kind of like a perfect 90 degrees bird view. And then, since I kind of started to decorate the whole place, I went on to placing a couple of tables right at the coffee shop. And I thought it would be cool to combine them with these umbrellas. And that's where I also changed the color of the doors and windows of this coffee shop to red. And this sort of became the new accent color for the rest. So we have like two of them going on. We have blue that is carried over from the city hall, and then the new one is the red and white color for all the, public activity and entertainment. Entering the night mode, of course, to place all the city lamps that we're gonna need. So of course I had to use these nice fancy old looking ones. And unfortunately in the default game they come only in the green color, but that wasn't much of a problem because I just adore their shape. And as for the street lights, of course I had to use the ones that we already placed at the front of the city hall. So I just copied the exact same ones. And realistically there isn't much of a choice in the default game. Then we needed a couple of spotlights for the central square, of course, to lighten it up. And so at this point I realized that I really don't need the second lot. I can do everything just within one. And so that's when I went to the lot adjuster and decided to simply enlarge the park from both sides, from the left and from the right. So we're still gonna have a skating rink to the right. And as for the left part, what we're gonna have there is a kind of mock stairs that are meant to better tie together the different lots that I'm gonna have in the future. So what I'm doing here is just measuring 10 tiles to see where the old lot edge is. And what I'm creating is basically a part of the building that's going to be located right next to this park. This way, I believe it creates more of an illusion that all of this is just one connected territory, even though it is divided into several lots. And these parts will serve no other purpose than just the decorative one. So yeah, the end result should be worth it. And to finish off this portion of the lot, I went back to the lot adjuster and shrunk the lot back from the left side. Now I suggest we move on to the other right part of the lot, which turned out to be kind of like the key feature of the entire lot, even though initially it was supposed to be just a park. But still, having a skating rink will not hurt, especially when it's winter season. And I believe that in warmer seasons we can easily just swap it to the rollerblading instead of the ice skating. And of course having only the rink would not do, so I had to place another building that would serve kind of like the office where you would, I imagine you would purchase the ticket. And it's also gonna hold like a changing room with some lockers, as well as a little cafeteria, so that you can grab a snack if you're tired from all the ice skating. One distinct feature that I definitely wanted to have is a stage right next to the skating rink itself. This way some local musicians can perform here during some, city festival, and we have an alternative for just the stereo music. Also, this doubles as another activity that your playable Sims can perform here. So if they have the necessary creativity skill, they can come up on the stage, play some music, earn some money, and simply have some good time. let's just hope their creativity skill is good enough so that they don't spoil the good time of the rest of the Sims on the lot. As for the roofs, you can see that I tried to replicate the tower structure that I used back on the city hall. This is again for me to tie all the lots together and have a similar theme going on. Now the area outside of the skating rink and the stage needed some work too, and I decided to separate this park into two distinct sections. So we have the nice paved out zone that we already have to the left, and then to the right we're gonna have something more of a wild sort of thing. So again, this is similar to what we have at the backyard of the city hall, where a gateway separates this whole thing too. And to spruce up and add another activity that people can do here, I added a couple of easels, for all the creative Sims that would come here for plein air. To be honest, I don't exactly remember how it works in the vanilla game, because I'm pretty sure you cannot skill yourself on the community lot, but I'm not sure whether you can just simply draw here. It would be a bummer if you can't, but that can be easily fixed by downloading a corresponding mod. Well, adding this bonfire kinda denies realism, because I imagine that you would not probably be able to play something like that in real life, next to the city hall, the governmental establishment. But I simply love the object. I believe it came with Bon Voyage expansion pack, correct me if I'm wrong here. And ever since then, I was simply obsessed with it. And once again, this adds a whole new layer of activity that you can perform here on the lot. And when it came to terrain painting, I tried something that Antisocial Bunny mentioned in one of her latest videos, and that is using a graphic tablet for terrain painting. And man, is this more convenient than using a mouse. I mean, I did have an idea of trying that for quite some time, but I just never came up with a lot that would require that. And here it's just perfect. So I don't think I'm going back to using a mouse, at least for some extensive terrain painting work, because I don't think you really need that if you just add a spot or two. But when you have this like very intricate pathway and you need to blend different colors, you definitely want to use a graphic tablet. I can't say that I'm particularly satisfied with the terrain paint I did on this lot. I think it was a good idea to try and create this sort of a gradient, so with the brown center, then the yellow sent to the side that slowly blends into the sandy grass that we have by default. But I believe that with some CC paints and a more careful blend-in work, the result would be way better. Now, I also decided to add a couple of barbecue tables. This way the Sims will have a free option of having some meal here, other than the cafe that we have next to the skating rink. And the marshmallow is not that filling if you use the bonfire. And then came one of the most fun part here on the whole lot, and that is creating some lights, as well as decorating this dressing room next to the stage. Well, it's not really a room actually. The only thing that separates it from the stage is the curtain, but still I believe that's where the actors and the musicians would dress up for the stage. Now, decorative illumination was pretty important here too, and I decided to just go nuts with these neon signs. So I went all the way across with these strips of light, and then I thought that it would also be cool to add some hanging lights that would kind of be tied from the stage to the building, and we could also extend them even to the park because we have like a huge tree over there. Though I did have to experiment a bit with the placement and the exact lights that I used for this, because at some point I remember that we have this cool disco lights, but they needed more support than just a thin black wire. And also these corner lights needed some support too, so for that I decided to go with these simple wooden columns. Luckily they have red recolor, which is perfect for this particular build. But as for the central piece, I had to go with these stage lights that come with this solid rail in the middle. I can't say that I'm particularly liking it. I think it kind of clashes with the whole festival dynamic, but still it's better than just having these light balls hanging in a thin air. And I think that the end result is decent enough. And by this point I did not put much inside the building, so that's what I headed next. Again, I needed to place a couple of these machines that sell snacks and drinks, as well as some decorative lights, and just in general make this look more like a ticket hall that you would come to before you actually enter the skating rink. Speaking of which, this painting was just perfect for this, so I decided to place it right above the fireplace in the locker room. Though I did change the structure of this room a bit so that it's less repetitive and more interesting. And I also really wanted to place this pin-up poster somewhere on the wall. And one thing I like about the no CC builds is that they kind of force you to think out of the box. Because when I started decorating the front part of the building, I just thought that I had nothing to decorate it with. Normally, with CC, I would probably try and find some corresponding poster, maybe some Sims skating, but we don't have anything like that in the default game. So I had to carefully browse through the entire catalog to see what we do have. And then I found these diamond-shaped lights. The great part about them is that they come in two sizes. So we have the big ones for the first floor, and then we have a smaller one that I could place right above the door. So I think they look perfect, especially with the white and red recolor we have. And now with this, the building part is actually done. Now before we go to the cinematic shots, I wanted to show you how it looks in the hood view. So far we have two lots, one of them the city hall, then this park that we've just built, and then to the sides we're gonna have some commercial lots. I'm not sure what those will exactly be, but I definitely want to make some nice cozy looking tiny businesses that will fit in a one tile lot. And now let's take a look at the final shots. Thanks everyone for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.